This is the face of Pitou before they subscribed to the New World Review. Noticeably grumpy, unsatisfied with life, and filled with nothing but utter despair. Meanwhile, this is the face of Pitou after they subscribed to the New World Review. Elated and full of life because they now receive regular Hunter x Hunter content uploaded straight into their YouTube feed. And it's just amazing what a difference one little button can make. She is someone precious, to a person I care about deeply. If you so desire, I'll break my right arm as well. If that's not enough, then I offer both of my legs. If you think I won't keep my promise after I heal her, then you can mangle my body as long as it doesn't hinder the treatment. I beg you, let me do this. Please, let me save her. Hello and welcome to Hunter x Hunter 101, the series that breaks down everyone and everything in the Hunter x Hunter world. And today we are going to examine the firstborn of the Chimera Ant King's royal guards, Neferpitou. Neferpitou is a very playful chimera ant, sporting the appearance of a humanoid cat. And just to get this right out of the way at the beginning, there is a great deal of gender ambiguity when it comes to Pitou, because in the manga, Pitou is drawn very much as a young male, whilst in the anime they elected to give Pitou a more feminine presence, as well as a consistent bust. The only real indicator we have comes from the official databook, which states that Pitou uses pronouns such as kare and boku, the first of which meaning he, and the second of which is a common male way of saying I. With that said, boku can also be used by women, although it is much less common, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that Togashi purposely implemented this ambiguity, so this video is going to have to stick to gender-neutral pronouns just for the sake of ease. Cool. So in any case, Pitou is quite the unique member of the Royal Guards and tends to show a lot more personality than their counterparts, or even that of the king himself. Pitou is generally seen as cheerful, wildly curious, and easily carried away when having fun. But don't let that lull you into a false sense of security, because this cheerful kitty cat also has an incredibly cruel and sadistic nature, thriving on the rush of battle and taking great pleasure from the act of killing in general. With that said, Pitou is also exceptionally loyal to the Ant King Meruem and does not let these desires interfere with their duty as a chimera ant. In fact, an argument can even be made that Pitou is in fact the most loyal of the three royal guards, as they were the only one to remain completely unfazed by the king's interest in a certain girl by the name of Komugi, where they just sort of went with the flow, fulfilling Meruem's needs and desires as they arose, rather than questioning them. But as the first royal guard born, Neferpitou was named directly by the chimera ant queen, and Pitou's powerful presence was immediately felt by the rest of the colony, and moving forward immediately, Pitou's terrifying aura was able to command the generally rambunctious Ramot into immediate submission, which was an impressive feat at the time. And as a result, Pitou took it upon themselves to commandeer leadership of the colony for the time being. However, Pitou was also overcome with the desire to test their abilities, and so sought out Kite, Gon, and Killua after sensing an activation of N. And here, Pitou's monstrous strength would be immediately displayed as they managed to rip Kite's arm clean off. And just to be clear, Kite is no pushover. He was the apprentice of the infamous Hunter Jing and possessed his own incredible strength, speed, and mastery of Nen that had been completely unrivaled by a chimera ant opponent prior to this point. However, Pitou proceeded to fight and kill Kite as if he were absolutely nothing. That is the insane existence that is Neferpitou, born with extraordinary power as well as a natural mastery of aura nodes, allowing Pitou to immediately access the art of Nen. And one of their most notable features is the power to produce an incredibly overwhelming and fear-inducing invocation of Ten. Now, just to clarify, I am not referring to Ren, which is your typical offensive expression of aura, sometimes resulting in the bloodlust phenomenon. No, in this case, Pitou was able to replicate a similar result using just a standard 10. And Pitou was also able to produce a rather staggering N, which takes the form of a vast array of manipulatable tendrils rather than a typical sphere, each of which is capable of extending a maximum of 2 kilometers, making Pitou effectively the ultimate guard cat. But delving a bit deeper, Pitou has the distinction of being classified as a specialist, the most terrifying class of Nen user because they aren't boxed in by regular restrictions and can very effectively wield their aura in a more personal manner. And speaking of, with their vast quantities of aura, Pitou went on to create a slew of unique Hatsu that reflected their desires. The first of which is a creepy conjured presence known as Dr. Blithe, a giant doll-like thingo that comes equipped with a supreme array of medicinal tools, allowing it to treat fatal wounds and even reconstruct corpses. In fact, Dr. Blithe was created through Pitou's desire to face off against Kite once more, and Pitou was able to achieve that to some degree of success, I guess. But there are a couple of caveats in regards to Dr. Blithe, the first of which being that this supposed Nen beast cannot move from a particular spot once summoned, as well as the fact that it is directly connected to Pitou's tail, thus resulting in a severe loss of mobility for Pitou, putting them in a greatly vulnerable position whilst administering any healing. What's worse though is that having Dr. Blithe active prevents Pitou from using any other Nen abilities, including basic and advanced principles such as N, although a small amount of aura is left around Pitou in order to provide basic protection. In any case, those steep limitations do result in being capable of phenomenal medical power. But Pitou has also developed an effective offensive Hatsu known as Terpsichora, a Nen presence that takes the form of a ballerina with strings on its fingertips connected to Pito's body, as if Terpsichore was wielding a marionette. And the effects of having this Hatsu active appears to be a general boost in the physical capabilities of Pito by having Terpsichore manipulate their body beyond Pito's natural limits. And furthermore, Pito also has a basic ability known as puppeteering, by which Pito creates a clown puppeteer thingy and can then attach it to the corpse of a target, thus allowing them to manipulate it. And rather scarily, if the body belonged to that of a Nen user, then Pito can also command their new puppet to engage in Nen-related abilities. And with all of this in mind, Pito proved to be instrumental in regards to Meruem's ultimate plan of gathering the citizens of East Gorto to conduct his brutal selection process, which was mainly achieved through Pito manipulating the corpse of the nation's previous figurehead. However, Pito's primary duty during the time taken to gather the citizens was to use their absurd end to act as a lookout. And it would be during said duty that one night, Pito would look up to find a Nen dragon gunning straight towards the palace. An unusual sight, to say the least. But soon enough, Pito came into contact with one Isaac Netero, the leader of an extermination team dispatched to deal with the threat of the Chimera ants. And excited by the prospect of battle, Pito launched straight towards him, only to be swatted away like a fly. As a result, Pito was left only capable of witnessing the destruction of the palace, and by the time they reached the king, Pito discovered Meruem cradling the human Komugi, who had been fatally wounded in the attack. Pito was then ordered to heal Komugi with Dr. Blithe as Meruem headed off to fight his invaders. However, this put Pito in a very vulnerable position where they were found by Gon. And Gon's entire mission during this extermination was to revive Kite, whose death he felt responsible for, and he demanded that Pito go with him to do exactly that. Pito then did something very out of character and pleaded with Gon to let them finish saving Komugi first, even going so far as to break their arm as a sign of good faith. And in the face of this, an enraged Gon would eventually acquiesce to this request, and after Komugi was healed, she would be taken hostage, forcing Pito to be at the sheer mercy of Gon, a being that Pito could have easily eviscerated under normal circumstances. The pair then traveled to the location of Kite's reanimated corpse, after which Pito declared that not even their ability could bring Kite back from the dead. Pito then genuinely apologized to Gon and prepared to kill him. However, full of rage, despair, sorrow, and all of that good stuff, Gon then made a very dangerous vow, allowing him to access a tremendous amount of aura, which transformed him into an adult version of himself with power comparable to that of the Chimera Ant King himself. Pito was then forced into combat and brutally beaten to death by Gon. However, just prior to Pito's passing, they came to realize the extreme price that Gon had paid for this immense aura and rejoiced, because they were the target of this rage rather than King Meruem. And you'd think that that might be the end of it, but after passing away, Pito's Terpsichore Hatsu became an invocation of post-mortem Nen, spawning from the feelings of pure loyalty and devotion to the king, and thus it reactivated to take control of Pito's lifeless corpse, and even managed to sever one of Gon's arms, although it was ultimately defeated once more. And to add insult to injury, Gon even used the very same arm that Terpsichore severed to put it down for good, thus bringing an end to Neferpitou's legacy on this world. Some more fun facts about Neferpitou. Neferpitou's name comes directly from the Egyptian god Nefertem, as well as a character named Pito from a French children's book called Caroline et ses Amis, which I've probably butchered because my skills in French, well, they're non-existent. But Nefertem in particular is notable because the depiction of this god often shows them with the head of a lion or a cat, thus very much reflecting Pito's design. Pito's Hatsu, Dr. Blithe, takes both its name and visual inspiration from a fashion doll known simply as Blithe, a brand that was first created in the early 1970s, and to this day, Blithe dolls can still be found being made by Hasbro. According to the Hunter x Hunter manual, Pito scores a perfect 5 out of 5 in every area except for the mind, which they score a less than perfect 4 out of 5, which is more than likely due to how easily Pito can become distracted. Having secured an incredible 6th place in the 3rd Hunter x Hunter character popularity poll, Neferpitou actually has the distinction of serving as the most popular Chimera Ant in the series. However, it should be noted that this poll was published in 2004, which did occur before the introduction of Meruem, who would appear in 2005. However, no other Chimera Ant at this point in the series, including the 2 other members of the Royal Guard, even managed to rank in the top 30. And finally, a truly useless fact, Neferpitou is rather sadly the only Royal Guard who never got to learn Meruem's name. But that pretty much does it for Neferpitou. If you enjoyed this video and the content this channel produced in general, then please do consider donating to the NewWorldReview Patreon, because the support of all of you amazing people is what continues to make this channel possible. And if Patreon isn't quite your style, then please do leave this video a like, share, or subscribe, because it also helps support this channel an incredible amount. And if you'd like to join the fun at any time, then please do head over to my Discord server, where a wide array of shenaniganry takes place on a daily basis. And finally, please do comment with who, what, or where you'd like to see featured on the next Hunter x Hunter 101. Tips on getting a waifu. So I guess start watching any given anime series until you uncontrollably start developing feelings for a 2D character. That's my understanding of it anyway. However, if you're interested in exploring the world of some sort of real-life waifu, well then they get a bit more complicated. I would say just make an effort to socialize, like a lot, because the more people you meet, the higher the odds of finding someone that you actually click with. Once that occurs, ask that person out. See if you both want to pursue. If they say yes, cool, go on a date, see if you want to pursue some sort of relationship, and however long down the track, if you want to get married, then ask them that as well. And if they say yes, well then you have secured a real-life waifu, or husbando, whatever you prefer. Togashi jokingly stated everyone will die when asked about how Hunter x Hunter will end. What are your thoughts on this statement? Alright, so just to clarify, Togashi did indeed say this, but it was in reference to Kurapika and the Phantom Troop specifically. And yes, it's entirely possible that it was a joke. I mean, imagine that you, as an author, are asked to answer a stupid question like, oh, how does the series end? Because after a while, I guess you might be pretty tempted to just give a troll answer. However, because it's impossible to gauge Togashi's tone from the written word, I kind of have no choice but to believe it, especially in the case of Kurapika, because he has roughly like 1 billion death flags circling him in the manga, and the Phantom Troop have also put themselves on very destructive paths. I mean, 2 of them have already been dispatched by a bigger, more better Hisoka, and the rest of them are now split up into small groups aboard Black Whale 1 to search for him, which is a marvelous idea because you're just dividing your power and making it easier for him to pick you off one by one. So at the moment, I am definitely inclined to believe Togashi's statement, even if he was trolling actually, but it is important to know that he was only referring to Kurapika and the Phantom Troop.